Good morning, everybody. How are you all doing this morning? So, uh, we've got another wonderful day. It's kind of breezy outside and blowing a lot, and I've got my fans going. So there's going to be some background noise, and I apologize, but I'm really enjoying the cool air coming in from outside. I'm also trying to light the scene a little bit better here, but I'm starting to think that the blue light is probably not the light we want. But it's so cool because it's blue. Anyway, no. The blue light's cool. It's cool, David. Yeah. Good morning, David. Good morning, Cat. How are you? You have to think about all these questions, don't you? It's like a thing to think about. She's joining us. Look at her joining us. You're like being all friendly. This is kind of strange. I'm wondering whether you're going to kill me in my sleep. I never know these things. So, anyway, it's morning, and I was actually thinking that we would try to work a little bit on showing how this goes to 3D. Right? So, in the interest of doing this, well, first of all, I'm going to have to put you off of my lap. Because as wonderful as it is to scritch you in the head, and you're a good cat. You're a good cat with lots of scritches. I like scritches too. But you're also a terrified cat, and you're terrified of the wind. So I'm going to put you down so you can go there. Okay. So I'm going to show you how we're going to convert some of this into a 3D model. And how that works. So here we go. This is where we were yesterday. When last we left our heroes, right? We were here, and we have the ability to do at least this part and this part of this hallway. Not a whole lot of it, but some of it. Good morning, Brent. So, I have one of two options I have oft thought about doing here. One of them is, you can take the entire deck as it stands and make a massive floor, which is something I have done before. And I think these decks are probably small enough that wouldn't be that big of a deal. I'm not 100% sure, but what I'll do is we'll make ourselves a larger version of this deck. All right. So we copy it. We say new. And I want to do, I want to do something larger than because whatever happens here, you'll see what's going on here. I'll paste it in. All right. When we do this at the full size for there we go. And we'll see here. I mean, this might be what'll happen is when we get into this deck, it's going to be like this. So we want to have this look crisp and clean at full resolution. So the question really is, how crummy does that look? And that looks pretty crummy. So we may have to increase it by 200%. So give it a second here while we think through this stuff. This is the old problem with bit mapping. There we go. And I think that this might just be big enough that I'm going to break it into 3 sections. Because I feel like we're going to have problems with size on this. It's going to be too big and too unwieldy. And we could see by how long it's taking to think this through. And I only doubled its size. There we go. Now what we're going to do... Yeah, it's already chugging out quite a bit here. Woo, come on. Come on. There we go. Okay. It is going so slow that it actually is not responding to the pin properly. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to cut the map at the doors. There and there. And then we'll trim it down because we don't need this to be any bigger. We only need a little bit of bar up here to indicate what kind of, or my size bar, so that we can get the idea of how big 2 meters is. Ooh, doggy, this is taking forever. There we go. Okay. Now, when we look at this here, what we're going to have is, this is going to be the basis of this quote-unquote set. Okay? So, I'm going ahead and I'm going to erase the words that are telling me things, because those will end up being written on the floor, which I don't think we really want. And we don't need chairs. This is just floor. All right. And these guys are only on there. All it's going to be left on the floor is the mount marks, where they live on the floor. So there we go. And what I'll do is they'll just be black on the inside, so that we don't have to worry about this. Right? So what I'm doing here is just cleaning up the lines. Some of this stuff is actually going to be on the floor. So we're going to go through here and make sure that this is straight and clean, because this actually will be on the floor. Right, so we want this to look clean. There we go. Just like that. And this is that forward tactical table. As long as it's on the ground, it's just a marker on the floor. But should we raise it out of the ground, it'll be a table. All right. Alrighty. There we go. The other thing we want to do is just put markers that indicate where these chairs will be. And those markers will tell us on the floor where the chairs will end up being. And the next thing we're going to do is clean up this. Because the reality is, it'll be a circle, much like this. We'll add a layer, and then put a stroke in here, and a little bit of one, just a little bit. 2. Wow. We are chugging out the machine here. Okay. Right. For some reason, when I have my pen tablet engaged, the mouse will not do an accurate square. It really is. Oh my god. Okay. Now, that's not good. Okay, so we're looking now at the bridge here. We look back here at these stairs. The stairwell is not. Whoa! The stairwell is not going to be existent here. It'll just be the bottom step. So we'll take out everything with the bottom step on the stairwell. And to be fair, I am also running at this moment Daz Studio under here and our broadcast software, so I can't rightfully blame the computer for being a little pressured out here. Feel bad for my little computer, but that's all right. It's not the world's best computer yet. It will be. It will be. It's only a matter of time. All right. Interesting. I'm noticing that this guy doesn't. Are they not aligned correctly? How did that happen? Oh, we must have erased them somewhere along the line. Interesting. Yeah, that's all right. We can do that. Totally does. Why are you worried me? We work so hard. This is so difficult. Such a difficult job I'm doing here. Don't you respect me? Yes, I do. I respect the computer. Tame the cooler. Respect the donut. All right. Going through here. There we go. It's also really... So it was symmetrical. Remember, we copied and pasted it. So we flipped it. Oh, you're talking about now. Why is it not symmetrical? Because, strangely enough, I know that there's a symmetrical key somewhere, but I've never managed to find it. So there is that. Okay. Now that we have this going on, there's no access to this room at all. I'm just noticing that. Let's put a door in. Whee! So, to answer your question, David, no, there's no symmetry option in Photoshop, I'm pretty sure. Because Photoshop is for fixing photos. It is not, in fact, for doing what I'm doing, which is drawing all of these things. And in fact, they constantly remind me of this. I agree. I think there's probably one on the other side as well. You're right. So we're going to go through here and do this. Warp. Not ecstatic about that. That's right. Okay, clear those. And I have no idea what we were going... I mean, I think this is for... this room is for machinery for the launch bay. After launch bay. Which is all right. We're only going to work on this a little. Yeah, I know Procreate has one. We've had this discussion. It's going to cost me thousands of dollars to change everything over to Mac. You know that, right? I mean, I'm already on PC, and I'll just stay on PC. There are actually a number of wonderful apps. I am sure that Clip Studio Paint has... well, you know, just saying that Macs are kind of Linuxy. You know, I don't mean to start a war here, but nice to know that some things have not changed. The old war between thousands? Yeah, I mean, if I were to get the same quality of a machine except a Macintosh, it'd be brutal. I mean, unless I wanted to run my entire universe off of an iPad, which I could, I guess, but let's be realistic here. I tried to run everything off of a Surface, and that didn't work. It was just too small. So yeah, all my pics were up on Google Drive. We had that problem. We had that discussion. It's unpleasant. Although that turned out, in the end, to be my fault. So as much as I'm whining and bitching and moaning about Google Drive, the truth was that was my fault. I did it to myself. So there is that. That was me. Well, I'm hoping that that's not super urgent. So I'm going to real quickly message him and say, is this urgent enough to cancel my live stream? I'm not, because my phone's being stupid. So give me just a second here, guys. So interestingly, I had an interesting thing go on last night. Hang on real quick. Important enough to cancel live stream. So I'm going to see what he says. That was my buddy Troy, who, my Geek Tank buddy. But yesterday, he said I would if it was important enough to cancel your live stream, I would call you. So he just called, and I'm like, now wait a minute, we just had this discussion yesterday. So is this important enough to cancel my stream? I don't know. Probably not. He probably just made an error. Because he just said he was texting me. Okay, well, that's fine. I don't know what's wrong with Troy. I'll find out, I guess, in a bit. But he's still alive enough to text, so I'm assuming it can't be that fatal. So, I have no earthly idea. Okay. Now, we look at this particular setup here. And he said he's texting me, so I'm just going to assume that everything is not dead. We are still, right? I know, totally. Be out of balance. Be all the girls. However, that said, we'd probably be much more productive because they are a much more productive batch than we are. The girls in our group are much better at organization and being organized. Chelsea's also much better at yelling a lot. It's very much a Chelsea thing. So, dang it. Okay, so what I'm doing here is just cleaning up the lines a little, right? Going through and kind of clean up lines. There we go. Go through here. I always feel like, Troy, if it wasn't like super important, Troy could. Am I not broadcasting? No, I'm still broadcasting. I feel like if it's not super important, like, or super private, I guess, Troy could always just join the live stream and chat with me. In fact, I think I'll suggest that. People want to just chat with me. I'm not going anywhere. No, I don't think there's any conversation going on right now, David. I'm talking about Troy. I don't think you read... Oh, okay. So, yeah, he's... All Troy is doing is dumping off clothes. And he's like, I'm in the neighborhood. I'm like, thanks. I'll get it in a few. There we go. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I think about this a lot. I'm like, I work from home, and I get a lot of, well, since you're home all the time, you're obviously not doing anything, so it's like, wait, I'm doing stuff, and it's important. I mean, nobody would call me in the middle of a business meeting and say, I'm going to drop off some clothes. Yeah, I'm still watching a messaging on Twitch there, David. Guy, you may want to start reading the messages as they come across before responding. Huh? Oh, you mean like read them out loud? So like what I just did. So you can see what I'm talking to. Because I'm confusing David. That's a brilliant idea. I mean, other than I like to confuse David, but there's that. I mean, anything confuses David's good in my book. So, yeah, I know it, and it's actually kind of funny. My wife and I have talked about this a number of times, and she hates that she does that. I mean, she says openly, she's like, "I do this to you," and she says, I do this to you, and I don't mean to, and I'm like, yeah, I know, it's just anyway. And entertainingly confused, I think, is the word we're looking for there, David. You're entertainingly confused. So, anyway, okay, that was. I agree. I will. Brent's saying that I should read them out loud so that people watching on other platforms will understand. Although at this point in time, you are the only person on Twitch, Brent, but I can see why you guys are not talking to each other. So, I mean, you guys are both kind of talking about Linux and Apple and stuff. I mean, frankly, my wife's a big Linux fan too. Getting back to this, she's always been big on Linux, and she's wanted to put Linux on this laptop that we've got that's kind of getting along in the tooth and not doing so good. And she's thought about it a number of times, but she never got around to it. Okay. So now what are we doing? We finished kind of cleaning this up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to put in a rough floor plan. This is going to be ultimately our floor. I know. Well, and Brent's saying if he didn't have to use Windows for Active Directory, he wouldn't use Windows. And my feeling on that one is much the same. It's if I didn't have to use Windows for all of the tools for my clients. Well, and I am kind of, I mean, to be fair, I kind of, getting long in the tooth here myself. It's not as easy anymore for me to just pick up a new language. It once was, but it's not anymore, And so I'm having a hard time just thinking that I'm going to dump everything on my computer. I'm getting older. I'm getting more set in my ways. And there is that. Okay, here's what we're going to do. I am going to go into my shared resources directory. And I have these textures that I use a lot. And what I've got is I've got these zipatones, right? Which are nothing more than just dots. Okay, so I'm going to open one of these guys up. There we go. All copy. Go in here. Let's say paste. Let's say transform. Rotate 90 degrees. Okay. So we take this guy and then extend him out all the way here to there and stuff like this. And you're all going, what the hell are you doing, guy? You know, I often say that to myself all the time. What are you doing, guy? Okay. The floor needs to be plaid, says Brett. This will give us effectively just carpet. You know what I mean? It's not going to be anything amazing. It's just going to be carpet. And the carpet's going to look like dots on the floor, and everybody's okay with that. I did this with levels. Let's clean this up because it looks like it's really messy. There we go. Make it more certain, folks. More certain. So all it's going to do is just add a dot pattern to the floor so that the floor looks like it's got carpet. And that's fine, right? Then we'll go through here and we'll add trim like this. And all this is doing is indicating what rooms are and where not to walk on your hallways, I guess. All right. Well, it's not carpet. It's space carpet. Right? It's probably not even really... I mean, all it really is a floor pattern. Right? And they don't have to worry about water, so no wet dog. Yeah, it's an AstroTurf or something. I'm sure it is exactly that. And we'll go into this room. What it probably really is, legitimately, is some kind of indicator of when you are on zero gravity or gravity plating or something like that to tell the people, you know, oh, hey, you guys are on gravity plating. I mean, in reality, that's probably what it is. So it's probably not as weird as we think it is here. There's probably some kind of indicator. Oh, man. And I mean, part of this is that we're going to have other things on the floors here. And we're going to want to put markings like this across the floor. Woo! But we don't want to do it that way. I do it at least straight, right? Which might indicate, you know, different things on the floor. Just segmenting it out. And what will happen is in access zones. Yes, access zones like an Andromeda string. So you end up with like plating information, things like that. Now, something I have been kind of pondering, and now we're going to have to start thinking about this, is I've been pondering the idea that the English language has moved. Like, it's no longer... I mean, it's been 500 years. More than 500 years. So my thought is that maybe English is not there anymore, especially if you think all of us merged together as one big, happy, well, maybe even not even happy, but certainly one big clump of humans. So, the thought here is, well, would you have a language that has moved on? And I think that there would be. Now, maybe alphabet wouldn't have moved on much, because the alphabet actually has not moved much since its inception 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. So it's possible that the alphabet wouldn't change, and maybe Roman numeral or Arabic numerals wouldn't change. So, I think you could probably safely have, one on the floor. Make it so difficult for you here. Right? I think it's mad. It's very mad. Okay. Right? I can see that we might have numbers on the floor. Well, and Brent says that's why they have BASIC in Star Wars, and the Belters have their own language in The Expanse. That's actually something I've been contemplating. Was what if I just made up my own alphabet, and it was, everything was written in that alphabet. And, I mean, you get used to it in Star Wars really quick. I mean, we all recognize BASIC in Star Wars. It's pretty obvious. David saying, well, I'm sure if we tried to read Arbrush, it would be probably a whole bunch of your mom jokes. I mean, let's be realistic here. That's what I would do. Disney wouldn't know any different. I mean, so Brent's saying he still can't read that Arbrush, which is the rebel characters, or whatever, Imperial characters, the standard characters in Star Wars. So this will take a lot longer than 1 hour. I want to go on ahead and kind of move us around so that we're at a point where you can kind of see what I'm doing. So I know that this is going to be a separate sort of thing, and it's going to take a long time, and I probably really want to spend 3 or 4 hours on this map. But I want to show you guys how this is done, so kind of want to move to the next phase a little bit here. So the next thing we need to make sure we do is look at, not the bridge, look at this and say, okay, what didn't get moved over here was layer 6, right? And that's a tactical error on my part. But these little guys that indicate what 2 meters is, one of these guys needs to be up here when we copy this bridge piece over. degrees. Because that's a 2 meter block, right? And we've already established that that's a 2 meter block. So we will once again copy this section right here. And we'll go over here and we'll paste it. And this will for just a minute, we'll stick this on here just long enough to get the 2 meter block in. That's all we need here. And this was just a mistake I had made. We need that 2 meter block. And yeah, I know it's not exactly accurate, but it's close enough. So this guy up here is going to tell me what 2 meters is when we get into Jazz Studio. So I'll leave this marker on here. And we're going to do go to the desktop. That's good enough. Got lots of stuff on my desktop, but this will work. Okay. Deck plan 1. And deck plan 1. There we go. Doesn't need to be 9 megs. It can be. Hello. Whoo doggy. There we go. Okay. Now when we bring this here, we say create. And we're going to create a new primitive. And we don't need anything but a plane on this, so we'll accept the plane. All right. And we'll go from the top view. And then, sadly, zooming out is by wheel. And so I have to go over here with that. Fine. Okay. So, we're looking at this guy here, right? And so we're trying to figure out where he goes. Why does it do this to me every time? All right. Okay, where were we? Deck plans, right? Deck plans. It's the name of the thing we were looking for. I feel like I'm on the wrong monitor. I am definitely on the wrong monitor. Okay. There we go. Now we're on the right monitor. We have lots of monitors going on over here. One of the things here, I've set up the base color to be deck plan, so it's this deck plan here. We can already see that it's out of scale. I mean, obviously it needs to be something like this-ish, give or take. We'll figure it out. But we won't be able to tell whether it's the right size for humans until we have this guy lined up into two of these. So he needs to be the width of 2, or there we go. That's it. So we're trying to get this guy lined up over here, if you're wondering what we're doing, so that his width is 1. There we go. And the length is 2. There. Now this is scaled properly to where we want a human to be. Still not a very big bridge, though, is it? It does look like a smiley face, though. Like a, I'm sad. Okay. But for the first time now, we can just stick a dude in here and at least see the size of this bridge, which will help us a little understand the space. There we go. That's the other thing I really wanted to see, was what was the status of that tube back there. Looks like one person. So Brent's saying that I should have an STL made. So, the truth of the matter is, I've thought very much about exporting the larger model of the Kittiwake for STL. But not the bridge necessarily. I might. I mean, I'm going to build the structure in here. What I'm looking at here is, when we have some guy on the bridge just standing here doing, bridge stuff. Here's a bridge officer. How does this work? How tight is this bridge? Right? We got somebody here, 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 here. Right? And, though this bridge can be construed as pretty, it's not huge, but it doesn't look like it's going to be a major issue. I mean, it looks like it's about the right size. Right? I mean, these guys can fit in here relatively well. It's not going to be the largest bridge ever made. But it's not going to be tiny either. Looks like it'd be fine. We got one person standing at this point, one person there, the captain standing here. I mean, this is not, in fact, the bridge of like a heavy cruiser, so I expect that there would be, and these are full-grown men, so this is part of testing out the space. There are 15 people on this ship, generally speaking. So, when you talk about like everybody who's on board, and not only that, they're not all humans on this ship. Some of them are a very small, like basketball-sized creatures that kind of live in a deck that's below this deck, and they roll around. And well, yeah, but I mean, since everybody is, you might have this guy, and he's on duty this morning, but then he goes back to his room later on, and we get a sphere instead, right? And even though this is huge for the sphere, those guys are only about this big. So you might have this alien who comes in by teleprojection. Right? And so it's not like there are a lot of human-sized creatures. There are 7 races that are in the Unity. 7 creatures. One of them is a space-born race, so it lives on the outside of the hull. These little guys here, they live in a super high-pressure environment. And so they live in the deck. They live underneath the bridge in the deck plating, and in a almost like a duplicate of the ship. But since they're not very big, they don't need a very big space. And then what happens is, in order for them to be seen up here, they project using holoprojectors to be here so that they can interact and go, oh yeah, well, what about you? Brum, 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 brum. I don't like you either. Brum, 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 and stuff like that. So part of this is that you would have, some of these creatures aren't the same size. One race is like a giant amoeba, like a human-sized amoeba-ish, give or take. Very flexible and fluid, and only takes a human form to make the humans feel better, because otherwise it could just be a blob on the ground. Odo-esque, whatever you want to call that. Except that it can't change color, it just changes shape. Another one's like a fox-like animal, kind of like a cat. A fox cat, but roughly about that size. So, same kind of thing. So the races that are on the ship, the humans are the largest ones. So again, I'm back to the idea and the concept of what happens when you have a ship that is designed by aliens to house humans. You know what I mean? I wanted to make my aliens true aliens. So the Jacine, which are these little guys here, they live at 550 millibars of pressure. So they're like from a Jupiter-esque planet. That's what they live on. So those guys would be, in a way, not, if they were to design the ship, the ship would be a bathysphere. It'd be stapled down and, really, really buttoned down for pressure. So I don't know. It's I don't know. So these are all the things that I've been kind of pondering and thinking through when I work this story. The problem also is, you have a story and you've got Bob here, and Bob's like, hey there, dude. And this guy's like, burr, 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 burr. And this guy's like, yes, I totally agree. I can see you're sad. Burr, 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 burr. I mean, there's a little bit of there's a reason why bumpy foreheads exist. Because if you have bumpy forehead people, at least they're people, and you can read when they're happy or when they're sad, or if you have actual legitimate aliens, and then it's a little harder because, the aliens are hard to read. And it has to rely heavily on script. You've got to have the Jacine go, hey, Bob, I'm feeling really down today. I'm so sorry. I spilled your coffee because I'm mad and angry. It's okay, Jim. You get the idea. We kind of have to rely heavily on script because he's just going to be a soccer ball. Floating soccer ball. I'm noticing nobody's talking about my commentary about floating soccer balls. Okay. If you're just joining me, what we're looking at here is we're doing a 3D test of the bridge design. And how big is the set? And will it work? Like, this door is probably a proper door's size. A little small, but it'll work, right? But looking back here, you think about like the bathroom space that's back here. That's far more than enough for two people to be in there at the same time. But it's not this spacious, water closet thing, despite what Brian was saying about flushing the toilet. And everybody up here at the tactical table. Humans will be the largest creatures on this ship. So, as long as these guys can hang out here, we're good. They look like they're doing some kind of, like, seance or something. Oh, beings from beyond. Great beings from beyond. Right? He's, like, not going to get involved in this stuff, man. He's just going to watch. Okay. So all we're doing here is just checking the size of things. The stairwells look about appropriate. They'd be a little small. The only thing that's worrying me is the transfer tube. That transfer tube... Yep. Are you talking about the Great Arkle Seizure? Don't diss the Great Arkle Seizure, man. Just saying. Besides, I'll send my entire attack fleet to you, just as long as you don't have a poodle. We're fine. Okay, so Brent's making commentaries about sending the Great Kleenex, and I'm making counter commentary. Here's the other thing I want to check. We're going to go out into the hallway over here, and we're going to look at about human altitude, right? Because the truth is that for the most part, our cameras are going to be here. For any story, this is the reality, right? We're going to be about like this. We might be as far away as this. So the question really is, how detailed does this look? Is it good enough to do its job? Let's see. We'll render it up and take a look. Usually I get kind of grumpy about the fact that everybody has to Barbie-ize all of these dolls, but considering the fact that I think that if they weren't Barbie-ized, they would violate caste standards. This time, I'm actually kind of grateful. Okay. Hold two people across, looks like. Fine. And the dots on the floor don't look atrocious or out of place. And the lines don't really look out of place. That's the important part, right? If we render out this page, and that's really we're looking for here. I like this like gradient that it has added to. That's kind of funny, actually. Not sure what to think about that, but okay. Okay, yes. Okay. Okay, guys. That's how we've gotten to here. And I will continue to build these probably late at night when everybody's gone to bed and I don't have to worry about whether my kid is... Because I'll need to focus a lot on this. But at least now we're getting an idea of the 3D space, right? The other things we can do here is create a primitive, right? And go plane, except, and this plane will just move out of the way over here. We know that plane's going to be about, not that big. No, not that big at all. Woo, doggy. Okay, this plane's going to be a little over 2 meters. And stop doing that. And very long, right? If we do this, we can now see how long it's going to be. It doesn't need to be that long, apparently. That's fair. Alrighty, we'll shrink it down a little until it fits. And I'm not being accurate this time because we're just trying to show what this does. Okay. We'll bring it up a little more than 90 degrees because there's an angle, right? Inner wall angle. Come over here. Raise it up. This is not any fun doing it this way, but that's all right. All right. And we got a little bit of an angle like this. And what's going to happen here is I'm going to look at this and, well, we're going to have a problem with some of this stuff anyway. Right? I mean, no matter what, I can't get quite the rotation that I want out of this. There we go. So now it's and again. Good old and. If we're going to look at this and go in like this here, and I'll straighten this guy out, straighten you out, right? There we go. And this will tell me what the hallway is going to look like with a person in it, right? Makes me wonder, is this guy? Yeah, this guy's not totally out of the ground. There we go. All right. The surfaces. And this literally is the way I will build all of these sets. But first, I will figure out how to. The glossy color should be black. I'll hop a little. It's doing the helping me thing, and I don't want it to help me. But anyway, okay, so we can now do a quick render and get an idea of what's going on here. We are waiting on my computer. Okay. But now space looks like his hand is through a wall. That's the thing. Wall to put your hand through, too. I'm just saying. I'm not saying, but I'm saying. Yep, chugging along. Brent. All right. This looks like a perfectly viable hallway. I mean, this is the area that I'm most, other than the transfer tube, this is the one area that I'm about. You're going to have people running, and this stairwell is going to come up in the middle of this hallway. But it's clear that he can get around just fine. And folks who've been always hazards and things in hallways that are hanging, bulkhead or wall-height doors or anything like that, kinds of weird things. It's not like it's not the Enterprise. You can't just run. Knowing that would be the case, the stairwell can stick into this hallway. It'll be okay. So we're looking aft from here at the doorway, and that's where we are. I think this is okay. So this is my first 3D test of this. I didn't do it very accurately. I need to do it the first to do. But once you've got the first couple of sets in, the rest is pretty easy. And they don't take as much time. So we will be able to move quicker once we get... Okay. I need to come up with like a generic dude that doesn't have nipples, because it seems weird to have nipples, but... So, okay. The one area that I am concerned is this. That area, the tube, the transfer tube, being the only transit between decks, is one person wide. Right? Release the nipples, says Brent. And I mean, I think about this a little bit here, and I'm like, well, what are you using the transfer tubes for on the ships? We're using them to transfer between... Shift, really, most of the time, is going to be the biggest problem. Okay, guys, we're all done. Everybody head back to their bunks and stuff like that, or back to the common area, and yada, yada, yada. That's the only time that I feel like everybody and their uncle would be in this tube. I don't know. I mean, should I make the tube bigger? Probably. That's probably a good idea. It doesn't take up a lot of space right now. But it's 1 meter by 1 meter. It's a 1 meter transfer tube. I mean, I'm looking at it on the grid here. Each one of these squares... Hey, Raph! Each one of these squares is a meter. So if we look at this transfer tube, it's not even quite a meter wide. That's like 2.5 feet, 3 feet. That's claustrophobic. Okay, so here's what we have discovered about doing this in 3D. We've discovered that the transfer tube is way too small. That's really what we've got here. The interdeck transfer tube needs to be wider, thicker, something, rounder, higher, faster. Okay. Okay, so this is how we do our 3D test. So, Raph, we've been spending this morning setting up the 3D model, ultimately to put in the comics whenever I finally do this. And so that's what we've been kind of doing. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. Was the transfer tube could be an oblong oval shaped, or maybe like, yeah, I mean, because that way you could have two people transferring at the same time, but there'd be a right-to-right pass. Because I'm kind of thinking about the way that hallways work in Gundam. Because in the anime Gundam, we have a lot of these floating hallways. I apologize, guys. I went to bed late last night, and then somebody's alarm got me up really early, so I'm a little spacey today, which is why this is probably not the world's best show I've ever done. And a lot of free association here, and I'm not doing a lot of drawing. In fact, you know what? We could probably go on ahead and give this a break for right now, and I'll go back to that later. I appreciate that you think that every show is the world's best, my friend. Thank you. That's from Brent. Okay, so I'm going to not save this scene. I'll come back to it later, right? I'll close this guy too. Okay. The last one we did was 235, but I had another idea for 236. All right. And I'll put this one on a Friday. Having 2 a week is good. So we'll do the same thing here. I'll put 21 on this. Six. All right. So I had an idea based on our epiphany that we all had yesterday that that in reality AR is very similar to a certain very small young individual that I know. And so my thought was, what if you had AR here? All right. And he's got the game controller, which these guys, for reasons that are never very clear, he looks like he's got a mustache. All right, we'll put the little game system here. We'll put 1 foot here because he always sits down like this. We'll do this. Yeah. There we go. Yes, Chelsea. So Brent is asking whether that individual that I know and love so much is Chelsea. Definitely Chelsea. We'll just go with that because it's funnier that way. Okay. So I'm just going to duplicate this layer and move it over to here. There you go. David saying that I'm talking about my kid, and he's preserving it for all. Okay. I'll erase the controller here. And drawing the controller like this. He's getting grumpy and moving along to here. I'll just duplicate this again. And then we'll erase that. Like this. So Brent is asking whether Geek Tank intends to go to DPCC this year. We don't know, actually. We haven't decided. On the one hand, generally speaking, we don't have anywhere else to go over Thanksgiving weekend. So it's sort of a thing that I don't know. I'm not 100% sure. But we'd like to, I think. But I know that at least Chelsea has people really close to her who would not fare well with COVID-19. I mean, obviously, myself, I've got a 10-year-old. It's not that big of a risk. But, it still wouldn't be that pleasant if all of us got COVID-19. So, I don't know. You know what? I honestly think that what we're going to see is that that's too late in the season. I'm afraid we're going to see another resurgence as the summer wanes, and we're going to have some kind of I don't know. I'm worried we'll have another lockdown. So we may find that it's sort of, we may find that we may be locked down again. So we're not sure. Okay. So okay. Now to put in the I like how it instantly puts in creaking. I find that funny. Okay, 14. Let me say. There we go. David's going to feel attacked too. I'm just saying. Model trains are good. I love model trains. So, what scale? So, Brent and I are talking about whether Geek Tank's going to go to DPCC or not. And Brent's saying that it's finances on his case, and I agree with that. I can see that. So David's like, "Why should I feel attacked?" I'm like, "Because you're a gamer, and I know." Anyway, but yeah, the hey, me too. I have so. Brent's working in N scale. N scale is really small. Not as small as Z scale, but it's really, really small. And I love N scale because I can build huge layouts that still kind of... you play Empire Builders? Yeah, okay. Like, you're going to try to convince... David's saying that he plays Empire Builders, and he's never been frustrated by a game or anything like. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, so we're having two different conversations here, depending on whether you're on Twitch or whether you're on Facebook, and it's kind of funny. But for me, going back to Brent and model trains, I love working on model railroads. There you go. Get that in there. And like this. Because it's where are you going? It's a great like relaxer. I mean, I also work on miniatures, but one of the things David says he's even keeled. One of the things that I really love about... So, when I was in Japan, there was this entire building in Akihabara that was dedicated towards model trains. And it was a wonderful little place. So, I bought the cars and well, I didn't get the motor or the engine, but I got the cars for the Yamanote line, which is the line that goes around Tokyo, that just runs around the center of Tokyo. And it's a light green car, and everybody who goes to Tokyo recognizes it. HO scale. So I have an HO scale engine downstairs because I had an HO train set when I was a kid, and I still have the motor or the engine for it. I bet you that engine probably still runs if you put it on HO track. There's never anything wrong with it. But that train set had two engines in it, and I've lost the other one a long time ago, but I've kept one of the engines, my HO engine from that. So, okay. I'm going to come through here. Now, this is kind of tight work in here, so I'm going to be a little bit. And I know that it's kind of boring whenever I do all of this and I get in here and I'm so getting kind of into this tight zone over here, but it's so hard for me to get this right. I'm going to do this one, then this one, then this one, and then come up here like this and go boonk, 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 right? Those noises are critical. Critical drawing noises. Professionals only ever make those noises, right? Raf's going to back me up on this one. He always makes noises like this. Boonk, boonk, boonk. Totally does that. All right. In here, doing this. There's a little foot going on here. Right. We'll put this controller in. Sitting on the ground. It's a cable. There's his X station or playbox. Probably playbox. Playbox just sounds like something Hugh Hefner would invent. That's the Hugh Hefner invented game system playbox. And I think I should probably call it X Station. That'd be funnier. Maybe X Station. Right? It's the X Station. Funnier because it's a SpaceX-like logo on top. Okay. There we go. There we go. There we go. So he's turned towards TB. And we'll put the antenna. That's where its antenna is. I think its antenna is just right here. There we go. And then TB is one of my favorite characters to draw because he's just a circle. Super lazy. All right. Yeah, all this needs to be done. Really? Kill it all at once. All right. So we'll put in the tread on his feet. This wouldn't be so bad except that my kid actually did this 2 days ago. So one of the things that's interesting about comics is there's like this unwritten comic code that says that you can photocopy your blue line. But everybody gets kind of aggravated, or rather disdainful, if the actual frames themselves are copied. I find that fascinating, but it's a truism. So it's actually funny enough that the great Bill Watterson, who did Calvin and Hobbes, made a comic about it. Which is how I know it exists in the first place. Because Bill Watterson had to make an ongoing commentary about this. And then if you read the collected Calvin and Hobbes, that huge, wonderful collection, omnibus monster from Doom sort of book set, then you can see he actually addresses that. And it's highly entertaining. When I first started doing comic strips, one thing I had read like 4 days before I'd started the strip was how expressive eyes were. And somebody in this particular article had said, eyes are so expressive, you could almost draw people without mouths and still be able to do everything. So I decided to try that because I'm, I guess, somewhat insane or whatever. I'm on the wrong layer, aren't I? I am. Look at me being on the wrong layer. Where were you guys for the layer check? You know what I do? Watch this. Replace color. We select this color. Layer check. You've got to stop. But why? You're on the wrong layer. Hey. There we go. Yep. Fixed. Never really that far out of whack with this. Somebody's out there being super aggressive with their car. And whatever. Uh-oh. I think you're on the wrong layer. Troy's on the wrong... Oh, right. Troy's out there driving around. That's so Troy. So, okay. We've got... He's just mad. Right? I've forgotten the... There we go. Make this angry. Right? We can actually probably ramp this up. I think it's a little bit, if we were to ramp this up, we could do this. Right? And there we go. That'll work. There we go. Then we'll come along here, and his eyes are eclipsed at this point in time by his controller, but I can still get a little bit in here, kind of. Right? He gets in here, and he starts doing this, and he's already mad. Okay. Yeah. Okay, David. Layer check. You're on the wrong layer. You have to stop. There you go. Like the curly Q of it. I compulsively just checked my layer just to make sure, because now that I'm making fun of you for layer check, you could just see that I'd be on totally the wrong layer. Completely the thing that would happen to me. Ha ha ha, David. Ha ha ha. And then, wait, I'm on the wrong layer. Damn it. I think I'd learn from my own characters, but no, apparently not. That's apparently not a thing. Okay. There we go. So yeah, Calvin and Hobbes had made an entire comic off of the fact that it's uncouth to photocopy your panels, which I find particularly humorous because, of course, the way they did it was he photocopied all the panels, which was funnier than it needed to be. But nobody knew what that meant at the time, right? So, I mean, because I actually kind of wonder whether that was just a comic that when they read in the 80s, whether they just read it and went, okay, you know, like, I don't know what the hell he's talking about. Right? Do. And he's totally relaxed in this panel. He's not mad yet. He will be, though. Do. There we go. And he's like all laid back, and he's happy still because he just started the game. And we go like this. And then we screw it up. Then we go like this. And back and forth and back and forth. And man, the wind is really blowing out there. It's kind of cool. Since yesterday it hit 92 degrees, which is a thing. I'm good with not having lots of sun and heat. There we go. Let's save this in. Okay. The best part is, if it's an X station, I can just sign it. Yeah, so David's asking if I'd heard about that massive storm in India. Yeah. We have one of our Red Team Go guys over there right now. He's stuck. He's been stuck there with his family since the beginning of the COVID crisis. And so we've been kind of worried about him a little. And so, hoping he does better, you know. All I'm doing here is just adding the joke here doesn't require a background. Hey, somebody's missing feet. There. Yeah, me too. Me too. So he's hoping that our friend is okay out in India. I do too. So, okay, so Brent, we had a group for a while there. This is a good place. I'm done inking, and it's a good place to stop. And I'll switch back. Here, let me explain Red Team Go to you. I'll explain that here. So we had a group that's been going on for a while called Red Team Go, and it was a bunch of artists who all kind of got together to form a collective, and the collective was kind of to try to support each other. And, you know, oh, you need to learn how to ink. Oh, you need to learn how to do watercolors. That's fine. You know, this guy knows how to ink. This guy knows how to do watercolors. Stuff like that. And it was a great group. But I feel like somewhere along the line, the group decided to try to do publishing, which was awesome. But I have also discovered in my travels that when money gets involved, people get weird. And so there was money involved. And you have to have the right people in order to involve money. You have to be with the right friends. You have to be with the right group. Otherwise, the money gets in the way. So I feel like we had money in the way and stuff like that. And Red Team Go hasn't dissolved, but it's really kind of quieted. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, a couple of friends and I, including Raph here, we started the Quasar Art Collective, which is effectively what Red Team Go was supposed to have been all along. There's no money involved. We just have the resources pooled. Just artists getting together to help other artists out. You know, you need to learn to ink. Somebody knows how to do that. You need to learn how to get your proportions right. Somebody knows how to do that. That kind of stuff. And we call it the Quasar Art Collective so that it can be shortened. Because RTG was shortened to nothing, but QAC ends up being Quack, which we liked. So we've decided that Quack is good. Because then we can say this group's not all it's quacked up to be. Okay. But yes, so it's the same thing. We've got a page going for it now, which we're still working on because we still don't have our mascots and things like that ready. But it's going to be the same thing. Just join up, ask people about stuff. Yep, we're all quackers. Ask about information, things you want to know. Do you need to learn how to do this? Do you need to learn how to do that? That kind of stuff. Are you publishing your first very small book? Things like that. But it's not a place for Marvel or DC, and so that's the story of Red Team Go. There are still members here from Red Team Go that always show up. I mean, I met Raph through Red Team Go, and David through Red Team Go, and we had Colton on here once. He's now out in California, but he used to be in Red Team Go as well. So there's a lot of buddies that I've got now from the Red Team Go collective. But, I don't feel like Red Team Go does much anymore. I know that the guy who created it, is still trying to do things, and I'll help him out if I can. I mean, if I can get into that, but I haven't seen him in a while. So I don't know what he's doing. So, yeah. So there you go. And yeah, I've mentioned them a few times. And it's because I love those guys. They were great. I met Christina and Raph and Bob. And I mean, there's a number of people that I've met from that group. And they're just all excellent artists. And so it's wonderful. So anyway, that's where that comes in. So if you hear us talking about RTG, that's what we're talking about. So there you go. Okay, we've got about 10 minutes left. Let's see if I can't get into color here real quick. All right, let's just try to color this in. So with these panels, all I'm really doing at this point in time is there's no real background. He's in a room, and the room doesn't need much. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to add this, and I'll just call this the background layer. And what we're going to do is, I'm just going to pick a color at this point in time. Do this, and then fill that in, right? And we're going to do the same thing right here, and we're going to fill that in. And then do the same thing right here. And you're like, what is he doing? I'm going to fill that in. And this is important because now we can start to see that blue line became a pain in the butt. Hey, I've got this fast way to fix this. I end up having to redraw the page anyway. Okay. Now that I've done that, I can do this and do a gradient tool. And we're going to take the front color, and he's green because he's happy. He's not doing bad, right? Right? He's still doing fine here. Then we'll come over here, and we'll do this one. And, we're getting into yellow here. A little bit of warning, right? Things aren't going well. All right. We'll go over here and hit this one. And let's adjust this out to orange. And we'll do this. And actually, this should be red, red, red. Right? And then over here, he's just talking to TV, so we'll hit this one here, and we'll say gradient, and we'll go blue. Right? It gives it kind of a cool symmetry, and I like the symmetry that it's got, so that's fine. And I'm going to do first things first. Contiguous. There you go. Not the world's most perfect, but it will work. Okay. Now we got his color code. I'll go in here and we'll catch his color, right? We'll go through here and do the leg. Alright. Over here and do this. There we go. Get the leg in there. Whee! And zoom in, move over, and grab these little sections right here. Okay. And then TB is here, which means he's yellow. And he actually has a gray back section too. So we'll get that, and there, and there. Then I'm going to take some ridiculous color and make the controller and the X station. I think that's funny. There we go. And viola. We've got that figured out. Then all I need to do is go through here and do this, and this, and this, and this. And then grab that and go like that. He doesn't have an antenna here. Come back for that. Get his antenna. Okay. Here we go. Okay. Well, now I'm questioning myself. It'll be fine though. We'll figure it out. He's got his little antenna going like this. Let's not do that. Let's double check, shall we? So Brent is saying that he thinks that this is 235, not 236. This is an easy enough fix. Let's see here. Yep, that's 235. So it is 236, because this would be 235. Right. Kind of want this guy to be red, not blue, because he's angry. And let's go for the large black panel here, so we can go and do shadows real quick. All right, when the shadows through here, so this little controller's got shadows too. All right. Yeah. We'll flex the body just a little here too, as he's particularly angry right now. There we go. We have about 2 minutes left, which I don't think is enough to finish this guy. We'll finish him first thing tomorrow. Alright, come along here, because he'll still need the shine put on here and all that stuff. We still got to do that a little bit there. But this still... No, I appreciate you making sure, man. I'd love to think that I'm perfect and infallible. Yeah, no. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. There we go. This is actually good. It'll give me time to think about the punchline a little. See if it comes up with something that I'm interested in. See if it's still funny in a few minutes. That's really what it boils down to. Okay, guys. Well, we've done a couple of things today. We've done all kinds of little 3D weirdness. And we worked on the Kitty Wake deck plans a little, but not a lot. I'm going to go back through and double check everything and make sure that the doors are all put in correctly and things like that. And so we're going to figure that out. And we did a little bit of spring. So have an awesome day, guys. And I'll see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Bye-bye.